The big house suddenly went totally quiet. No one yelled, and nothing fell. It was quiet because someone was about to do a shocking thing. In the middle of the huge living room, under the bright gold light fixture, Clarissa, the billionaire's famous girlfriend, lifted her hand up high and fast. She was going to hit a maid, just like she always did. Everyone stopped moving right where they stood. The cooks, the maids cleaning up, the guards by the door. Even the head servant stopped breathing for a quick second. They knew exactly what was about to happen. Clarissa always hit someone when she got mad, and today she was furious. Before we start, write your name and where in the world you are watching from in the comments below. Then something weird happened. A hand shot up and grabbed Clarissa's wrist. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't scared. It was strong, like a thick rope tied tight and refusing to bend. It was Amaka, the new maid, a quiet girl who had only been there for 2 days. No one thought she would even look up, let alone hold the rich girlfriend's hand right in front of everyone. But there she stood, holding Clarissa's hand up, refusing to let it drop down. Every worker gasped out loud. "What? What are you doing?" Clarissa yelled, completely shocked and shaking with surprise. But Amaka did not move her hand. Her grip was firm. Her eyes looked completely peaceful. What they did not know was that the billionaire himself, Mr. Chica Anderson, was right there. He had just walked back from the bathroom and stopped in the hall outside the room. He heard the sudden silence and the loud shout. He turned his head slowly. Then he saw the whole thing. His girlfriend was trying to hit a maid, and the maid was stopping her. Chica stood still. He did not say a word. He just watched, feeling his own heart pound hard in his chest. Something deep inside him suddenly started moving and waking up. Clarissa's next words made the whole house feel tense. "Let go of me," I said. "Let go right now." But Amaka's hand did not loosen even a bit. This one single moment, this tiny sliver of time, would change everything that came after it. Then, everyone in the room gasped again because something even crazier happened. Clarissa tried hard to yank her arm free, pulling away from Amaka, but she could not do it. Her face started turning bright red. Her eyes grew wide in panic. She struggled harder, pulling and twisting. Still nothing. The new maid was holding her completely locked. All the workers stared at Amaka, unable to believe what they saw. From the hallway, Chica whispered a question to himself. "What is this? What kind of woman am I planning to marry?" He was just about to step into the room when someone else walked in right behind him. Someone who should never have been there. But before we find out who that person was, we have to go back to the very start. Because everything you just saw in that living room began much earlier than today. It started long before Amaka ever walked into this big house. The story truly began 3 weeks ago. Everyone in Lagos knew about Chica Anderson, the young rich man who owned Anderson Tech. People liked him because he was humble, gentle, and always helped the poor. But not many people liked his girlfriend, Clarissa Benson. She was beautiful, she was rich, and she was famous. But she was also proud. Very, very proud. At the mansion, Clarissa acted like she owned everything, even though nothing there was truly hers. She yelled at workers, insulted them badly, and slapped them whenever she felt like it. And because they all needed the money. The polished marble floor of the grand living room reflected the sudden, violent struggle. Clarissa Benson's perfectly manicured fingers, the ones she had planned to use for the slap, were now clenched tight against the pressure of Amaka Wosu's grip. The maid's hand was strong. It wrapped around Clarissa's thin wrist, firm and unmoving like a clamp made of iron. Clarissa felt the immediate sharp pain of her delicate bones pressed together. The intent to cause pain and humiliation had instantly backfired, turning into a moment of public, physical impotence. "Let go of me, you savage!" Clarissa shrieked. Her voice was not the sweet, controlled tone she used for social media posts. It was raw, strained, and ugly. "I am telling you, let go of me right now. Do you hear me?" Amaka did not speak. Her face, usually soft and open, was locked in a mask of stern refusal. She held the wrist high enough for the entire staff to see the struggle, holding Clarissa's hand frozen in the humiliating posture of the thwarted attacker. It was an impossible moment. No one in that house had ever dared to touch Clarissa, let alone stop her from acting out her cruel rage. Clarissa pulled back, twisting her arm violently, trying to leverage her weight and her expensive clothes against the maid's simple cotton uniform. The movement only made Amaka's grip tighten. Clarissa's eyes, normally sparkling with calculated charm, were now wide with pure panic and disbelief. This was not just a maid. This was a wall. "You are fired! You are ruined! I will make sure you never work again." Clarissa spat the threats, her breath ragged. She pulled again, hard enough that her diamond bracelet scraped against Amaka's skin, but the hold remained absolute. She felt a burning sensation where Amaka's thumb pressed into a specific spot on her arm. Her entire body trembled with adrenaline and frustrated fury. The other household staff, the chefs, the cleaners, the head housekeeper, stood scattered across the vast room, frozen. Their eyes were wide, darting between the mistress's flushed face and the quiet, unwavering maid. They were breathing shallowly, waiting for the inevitable consequences that would surely follow this defiance. They knew Amaka was brave, but they feared she had just signed her own death warrant in this mansion. From the arched entrance to the hallway, Chica Anderson stood completely still. He had walked in silently, his expensive leather shoes muffled by the thick Persian rug in the hall. He had been looking forward to seeing his fiancée after a long, stressful meeting, anticipating the usual routine of her greeting him with a flawless smile and a gentle kiss. Instead, he saw this. He saw Clarissa, his beautiful, sweet Clarissa, struggling with unnatural force against a small maid. He saw her arm raised, the pure intention to inflict pain etched clearly on her contorted face. He saw the maid holding firm, not in violence, but in defense. Chica stopped moving instantly, midway through a step. The shock was a cold, immediate wave that washed away all the pleasant warmth he usually felt upon returning home. He was a man used to processing complex business data, but this simple, ugly truth overwhelmed him. He had heard whispers over the 3 weeks Clarissa had been living there, the quick, averted glances of the staff, the strange silences, but he had always dismissed them, attributing them to the natural awkwardness between employers and staff. Clarissa had always been careful around him, always the picture of poised generosity. Now, he saw the lie laid bare. The way Clarissa's teeth were gritted, the ugly pink color spreading from her neck up to her cheeks, the sheer, ruthless violence in her struggle to break free. She was trying to hurt someone who was simply doing her job. Chica felt a strange, chilling sensation spreading in his chest. It was the crushing realization that he did not know the woman he was about to marry. The person he had built his future with was a stranger, and a cruel one at that. He wanted to move, to shout, to demand answers, but the scene held him fast, pinning him to the spot. He stared at the locked hands, then up at Clarissa's face. "You are crazy. I will have you arrested," Clarissa yelled, switching tactics from threats of firing to threats of legal action. Her voice cracked, making the threat sound weak and desperate. Amaka finally spoke, her voice low, steady, and dangerously calm. "You will release the tension in your arm, madam. You will not hit me." The simple statement, delivered without raising her voice, was more powerful than any scream. It confirmed everything Chica needed to know about Clarissa's intent just moments before. Clarissa's eyes, darting wildly, finally caught sight of Chica standing rigid in the doorway. The moment she saw him, her expression changed instantly. The venom vanished, replaced by a terrible, manufactured fear. Her physical struggle ceased. "Chica! Oh, thank God!" she cried out, trying to switch back to her innocent persona. But the shift was too sudden, too forced. This girl attacked me. She grabbed me. She tried to steal the bracelet, and when I stopped her, she went crazy." Chica's heart hammered a painful, slow rhythm against his ribs. He knew, with absolute certainty, that she was lying. The position of the hands, the raw anger he had just witnessed, it could not be faked. He took a slow step forward, his shadow falling across the polished floor. He opened his mouth, ready to ask the cold, terrible question that would shatter his engagement and his world, when a new sound interrupted the tension. It was the solid, heavy thud of a walking stick tapping sharply on the marble floor right behind him. Chica turned his head quickly, startled. Standing right where he had just been, having entered the house silently from the back service door, unseen, was Mama T. Matilda, known simply as Mama T, was Clarissa's former mentor and the closest thing she had to a true family elder. Mama T was an elderly, respected woman, known for her sharp mind and even sharper tongue, and the only person in the world whose disapproval could genuinely strike fear into Clarissa's heart. She carried herself with an imposing gravity, dressed today in a traditional, immaculate white lace outfit. Mama T took in the scene in a single, sweeping glance. Clarissa frozen mid-lie, Amaka holding the wrist firm, Chica standing like a statue of disillusionment, and the terrified staff surrounding them. The tapping of her stick stopped. The entire room went utterly silent. Mama T's eyes, dark and penetrating, settled on Clarissa's hand still captive in Amaka's grasp. Then she raised her chin slightly and spoke. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the air like chilled steel. "Clarissa," Mama T said, "release the child's arm." Clarissa was aghast. "Mama T, you don't understand. She attacked me. Look what she did," she sputtered, pulling against Amaka's hold one last, fruitless time, trying to prove the injury she claimed. Mama T took a deliberate, heavy step closer, moving past Chica without acknowledging his presence. Her focus was entirely on the trapped woman. "I said," Mama T repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "release the arm, Clarissa. Right now." Amaka, sensing the shift in dynamics and recognizing the authority in the older woman's voice, slowly, carefully, loosened her fingers. The instant the pressure released, Clarissa ripped her arm free, clutching her throbbing wrist to her chest. She stared at Amaka with burning hatred, then looked frantically at Mama T, trying to find an ally. Mama T ignored her gesture of victimhood. She looked at Amaka, giving the maid a tiny, almost imperceptible nod of approval, a gesture that went unnoticed by everyone except the head housekeeper, who gasped softly. Then Mama T turned to face Clarissa fully. Her gaze was one of monumental disappointment. "You have not changed," Mama T stated simply, her words carrying the full weight of years of knowing Clarissa's character. "After everything your father has done to cover your mistakes, everything you promised, you have learned nothing." Clarissa's facade crumbled completely. She was not afraid of the maid or of Chica's disapproval. She was terrifyingly afraid of Mama T's truth. "This is not your concern, Mama T," Clarissa hissed, desperation twisting her features. "This is a domestic matter. This is about discipline." She tried to regain control by reverting to arrogance. She pointed a trembling finger at Amaka. This thing has no right to touch me. She is just staff. Mama T did not even look at the maid. Her eyes were fixed solely on Clarissa. Did you think no one would ever see the real face beneath the paint, Clarissa? Mama T asked, her voice heavy with scorn. Did you think everyone would remain deaf and blind forever? She gestured toward Chica, who was still standing by the archway, his face pale and unreadable. Look at him, Mama T commanded. Your fiancé, the man whose honor you claim to respect. He saw you. He saw the raised hand. He saw the cruelty and the lie. And you stand here, even now, continuing to treat a human being like dirt. The mention of Chica, witnessing the event, made Clarissa's panic soar. She had been so focused on the physical fight with Amaka and the sudden intervention of Mama T that she had forgotten Chica was still there, observing her meltdown. Chica, darling, it's not what it looks like. Clarissa rushed toward him, trying to grab his arm, desperate to regain physical intimacy and control over the narrative. She was insolent. She provoked me. She needs to be taught a lesson. Chica flinched, pulling his arm away before she could touch him. The rejection was small, but absolute. He had seen enough. The illusion was gone, replaced by a cold, hard disgust. He finally spoke, his voice low and steady, laced with a coldness that instantly silenced Clarissa. Everyone deserves respect, Clarissa, Chica said. His eyes were focused, not on her, but on the staff clustered near the kitchen entrance. Everyone in this house is a human being. They are here to work, not to be humiliated or harmed. He looked back at Clarissa, and the look in his eyes was devastatingly clear. It was the look of a man who realized he had been deeply, fundamentally betrayed. This behavior stops now, immediately. Clarissa gaped, unable to form a coherent protest. Her control, her power, and her whole calculated performance had just been publicly stripped away by the maid's defiance, Mama T's intervention, and Chica's stark realization. "You cannot speak to me like that, Chica," she whispered, her voice cracking with fury and rising fear. "You choose a maid over me? I am choosing truth over lies," Chica answered simply, stepping fully into the room. He felt a profound sense of exhaustion, but also a strange, sharp clarity. The moment of raw, personal confrontation, the realization of the shattered engagement and the end of her reign of terror, hung heavy in the air, a silence broken only by Clarissa's ragged breathing. Then, that silence was violently ripped apart by the sound of frantic movement at the main entrance door. A man burst into the living room. He was tall, middle-aged, and immaculately dressed, but his clothes were disheveled, and his expensive shirt was drenched with sweat. It was Chief Benson, Clarissa's father. Chief Benson was normally a man of dignified composure, a pillar of society. Now, he looked like a ghost. His eyes were wild, and his breathing came in harsh, whistling gasps. He didn't even notice the frozen tableau. Amaka, Clarissa, Chica, and Mama Tai. He was too consumed by his own terror. He rushed straight toward Chica, ignoring the stunned looks of everyone present, including his own daughter. "Chica, we need to talk. Now!" Chief Benson gasped, leaning on a nearby pillar for support. His voice was frantic and loud, vibrating with an urgency that dwarfed the recent drama of the bracelet and the slap. Clarissa, seeing her father's state, felt a new, deeper level of fear surge through her. This was not about a misplaced diamond or a rude maid. This was about the past. "Daddy, no! Wait outside!" Clarissa commanded, her voice high and shrill with panic. "I am handling something here. Wait outside." Chief Benson didn't even hear her. He reached out and gripped Chica's suit jacket, his hand shaking violently. "It's worse, Chica," he whispered, his eyes wide with unshed tears. "It's all coming back. Everything we tried to bury. She's been lying to you about everything. She's been hiding something much, much darker than this cruelty." He waved a hand vaguely toward Amaka and the scene that had just unfolded. "This is nothing. You need to know the truth. You need to know what she did years ago." Clarissa threw herself at her father, attempting to cover his mouth with her hand, a desperate final attempt to stop the imminent catastrophe. "No, Daddy, stop! Don't you dare! Don't you dare tell him!" But Chief Benson, driven by a years-long burden of guilt and immediate crushing threat, pushed her away. He looked Chica directly in the eyes, the shame heavy on his face. "She killed a girl, Chica," he stated bluntly, the words echoing horribly in the sudden absolute silence of the grand living room. "Years ago, before she met you, she killed a maid." A deep, authoritative voice, rough like heavy velvet, sliced through the stretched silence of the living room. "Release her, Clarissa. Now." Mama T stood just inside the doorway, a strong, older woman whose presence commanded respect, not fear. She did not raise her voice. The low, steady tone was enough. Clarissa, momentarily paralyzed by shock and rage, felt her grip on Amaka's wrist falter. Mama T had walked straight up to her, ignoring Chica and the rest of the staff cowering near the wall. She placed a single heavy hand on Clarissa's shoulder, a familiar gesture of discipline from years past, and applied pressure. Clarissa gasped, not from pain, but from the sudden cold realization that she was cornered. Her face was flushed crimson, her eyes wide with exposed cruelty. She snatched her hand back from Amaka, stumbling a half-step away, clutching her throbbing wrist. "Mama T, what are you doing here? You should have called." Clarissa managed, trying instantly to shift from perpetrator to hostess, brushing her hair back quickly. Amaka stepped back silently, rubbing the red marks on her arm. Her eyes remained locked on Clarissa, steady and unforgiving, signaling that the maid's silent rebellion was far from over. Mama T didn't answer Clarissa's question. She looked past the beautiful facade, her gaze resting on Chica, who stood motionless, his face pale with disbelief. "You see it now, Chica," Mama T stated simply, her words not a question, but a painful confirmation. "This is the truth of her character, the way she treats everyone she deems beneath her." Clarissa spun around wildly, desperate to reassert dominance and control the narrative. "Don't listen to her. It's nonsense. This girl, Amaka, she is insolent. She touched my property. She needs to be taught a lesson, or the whole staff will get out of hand." She pointed a shaking finger at Amaka, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "She is just a maid. You don't involve yourself in such low matters, Mama T." "Just a maid?" Mama T repeated, folding her arms across her chest. "Every person in this house, whether they clean the floor or sign the checks, deserves dignity. It is the core of your character that is low, Clarissa, not the station of the people you abuse." Mama T's stare was unwavering, pulling the mask entirely off Clarissa's face. The silence that followed was suffocating. The staff held their breath, waiting for Chica, their generous employer, to speak. Would he defend his fiancée? Or would he finally break the toxic cycle? Chica finally moved. It was a slow, deliberate movement as he walked around Mama T and stood beside Amaka. He did not touch her, but his stance clearly showed which side he was on. His voice, usually warm and rich, was now cold and quiet, carrying a terrible weight. "Everyone in this house," Chica repeated, meeting Clarissa's frantic gaze, "will be treated with respect. If you believe otherwise, Clarissa, you do not belong here." Clarissa's mouth opened in a silent scream of betrayal. She had lost control publicly in front of the one person she needed to manipulate and the one person she respected. Before she could launch into a new fit of calculated tears or threats, the heavy teak front door of the mansion burst open. A man stumbled into the foyer, his movements clumsy and panicked. It was Chief Benson, Clarissa's father. The chief was a wealthy man, always immaculate, always composed. Today, he was a wreck. His designer suit was wrinkled, his tie was loose and crooked, and sweat plastered his hair to his forehead. He looked like he had run the entire distance from his office. He ignored the frozen tableau of the conflict, the pale, stunned billionaire, the furious fiancée, the calm older woman, and the defiant maid. His eyes were fixed only on Chica. "Chica! Oh, thank God you are here!" Chief Benson choked out, pushing past a terrified guard. He didn't even acknowledge Clarissa. "Father, what is wrong with you? Get hold of yourself!" Clarissa hissed, suddenly pulling her private domestic rage back into a social facade of concern. Chief Benson stumbled closer, weaving slightly. His breath came in shallow, frantic gasps. He didn't seem to hear Clarissa at all. "We need to talk, right now. We need to go somewhere private," the chief pleaded, his hands shaking as he reached out to grip Chica's arm. His fingers were cold and clammy against Chica's skin. "It's about Clarissa. It's about the truth she has been hiding. It's coming out, Chica. Everything." Clarissa's eyes widened with pure terror, far surpassing the anger she had felt moments before. This was not about a misplaced bracelet or a simple slap. This was existential. "Daddy, no! Don't you dare!" Clarissa lunged forward, fear giving her a sudden, desperate speed. She threw herself at her father, attempting to cover his mouth with her hand, a desperate final attempt to stop the imminent catastrophe. But Chief Benson, driven by a years-long burden of guilt and immediate crushing threat, pushed her away violently. He looked Chica directly in the eyes, the shame heavy on his face, the sweat rolling down his temples. "You have to know, Chica. You deserve the truth. This foolish bullying. It is nothing compared to what she really did. She has been hiding a secret that will destroy all of us. I couldn't hold it anymore. It's too dangerous now." He took a large, shuddering breath, his chest heaving with the effort. "There is a reason she is so cruel, Chica. There is a deep, dark history. Someone is coming for her. Someone who wants justice for what she did years ago." The air in the grand living room grew thick, heavy with the implied weight of a catastrophe too large to fit inside the mansion walls. Chica felt the floor wobble beneath him. He stared at his fiancée, seeing the beautiful shell of a woman he loved suddenly crack, revealing a terrified, desperate core. Someone is coming for her. Someone who wants justice for what she did years ago. Chief Benson's voice was a low, ragged rasp, yet every word echoed off the marble floors. Clarissa lunged. "Papa, stop! You cannot do this! You are making things up!" She grabbed his arm, her perfect veneer completely gone, replaced by frantic panic. "If you say one more word, I swear I will never speak to you again. Chica, listen to me. He is sick. He doesn't know what he is saying." Chief Benson pulled away from his daughter's desperate grip. The look he gave her was one of profound grief, not anger. "It is time to face it, Clarissa. No more hiding. I carried this secret for years, and it has almost killed me." He turned back to Chica, his eyes red and wet. "It was before she met you, Chica. Years ago, in our home. Clarissa was barely 19. She was always proud, always thought herself above the staff." He paused, gathering the strength to deliver the fatal blow. Clarissa stood frozen, her chest heaving, listening to her own life being dismantled word by word. She accused a young maid, barely 16, of stealing a small diamond earring. She knew the girl, Ngozi, was poor and scared. Clarissa didn't just scold her, she slapped her across the face right in front of the other staff. just like she tried to do to this girl, Amaka, today. Chief Benson pointed a shaking finger toward the corner where Amaka stood rigid. She shamed Ngozi and screamed that she would call the police and ruin her life. Chica felt a physical shock. The scene Chief Benson described was an exact blueprint of the moment he had walked in on minutes ago. Only the outcome had been different, because Amaka was strong enough to stop the blow. Ngozi ran, Chief Benson continued, the details pouring out now like black oil, thick and suffocating. She ran, hysterical with fear, down the back servant stairs. She was running so fast, she tripped. She hit her head on the edge of the stone steps. He buried his face in his hands, muffling a painful sob. It wasn't instant. She died 2 days later in the local clinic. Clarissa's slap and her cruelty. They started a chain of events that ended in a young girl's death. The silence that followed was deep and total. The house staff, huddled near the doorway, gasped in a synchronized wave of shock and misery. They had always known Clarissa was cruel, but this revelation, that her cruelty had resulted in death, turned their fear into deep-seated horror. Chica staggered back until his shoulders met the cold wall. You hid this?" His voice was thin, stripped of all warmth. He wasn't even asking Clarissa. He was talking to the entire, suffocating reality of the situation. "You let this young woman die, and then just moved on?" Mama T stepped forward, her face a mask of iron certainty. "The family used money, Chica. They moved the body, paid the clinic, and silenced the police. They destroyed every record. But murder cannot truly be hidden. The truth always finds a way out." Mama T looked at Clarissa, her eyes blazing with disappointment. "I warned you years ago, Clarissa. I told you that girl's blood would stick to your hands forever." Amaka Wosu, the quiet maid, felt a cold sickness pool in her stomach. She looked down at her wrist, still tingling from the forceful grip she had used moments before. The realization slammed into her. If she had not acted, if she had taken the slap and then run away in shame, she might have been Ngozi. The historical cruelty of the house was a terrifying, repeating loop. Clarissa, her eyes wide and wet, began to whisper pleas, denying the weight of the crime. "It was an accident, Papa. It was just a fall. I didn't push her. I didn't mean for her to die." "It doesn't matter what you meant," Mama Tai snapped, silencing the excuses. "You created the fear that killed her." Chief Benson straightened up, his face grim. "But the problem is not just the past, Chica. The problem is here, now." There was a witness, a boy, Ngozi's older brother, Samuel Okoro. He saw everything that day. He loved his sister, and he never believed the story we fed the local community. Chica frowned, the exhaustion of the past half hour settling deep into his bones. "Samuel Okoro? What about him?" "He knows we moved to Lagos," Chief Benson said, shaking his head rapidly. The frantic movement showed the true depth of his fear. "He has spent years trying to track Clarissa down. He just called me 2 days ago. He is in Lagos. He is coming here. He said he won't stop until she faces consequences for Ngozi's death." Clarissa let out a sharp, high-pitched scream, a sound completely devoid of the polite refinement she usually displayed. "No! Papa! He'll kill me! He's crazy! He is a madman!" She backed away, stumbling over a plush rug, clutching her hands over her mouth, her manicured fingers pressing hard against her teeth. The realization that the past was not only catching up, but was standing right outside the door, shattered her composure entirely. "He is not a madman, Clarissa," Chief Benson countered, his voice steadying only now that the truth was out. "He is a man seeking justice. He is demanding accountability that we bought our way out of." As the final terrible sentence hung in the air, accountability, Clarissa's legs buckled. Her eyes rolled back slightly, and she fell hard onto the polished wooden floor with a sound that was too heavy for a faint. But she was unconscious nonetheless, utterly overcome by terror. The entire household stared down at the collapsed fiancée, the beautiful, cruel woman laid low by her own dark history. Just as Chica started moving toward her, intending to call a doctor, a sound ripped through the tension, a sound that was loud, demanding, and utterly final. Bam! The sound of the heavy iron gate being struck echoed across the sweeping driveway and into the mansion's quiet central hall. It was not a polite, modern chime. It was a loud, deliberate hammering, designed to demand attention and instill immediate fear. Bam! Bam! The heavy knocks continued 3 times, cold and relentless, signaling the arrival of the consequence. Chief Benson went white, swaying on his feet. He knew exactly who was standing outside the Anderson mansion gate. The house staff scattered silently, retreating to the safety of the kitchen, their eyes wide with terror. The reckoning had arrived. The reckoning had arrived. A young man, one of the external security guards, rushed through the main entrance doors, his chest heaving, his face pale with alarm. He did not step fully into the main hall, staying instead near the safety of the heavy oak door frame. He gripped the door handle, clearly afraid to move closer to the source of tension. "Sir, Mr. Anderson," the guard stammered, his eyes darting quickly toward Clarissa, then back to Chica. "It is a man named Samuel Okoro. He is demanding immediate entry. He says he is here for justice." Clarissa's composure, already fractured by her father's confession, completely shattered. Her high-pitched, desperate scream echoed off the vaulted ceiling of the mansion. She lunged forward, grabbing Chica's shirt, crushing the expensive fabric in her fists. "No, Chica, don't let him in. He will kill me," she shrieked, her voice thick with pure, unadulterated fear. "You hear me? He wants to hurt me. Lock the gates. Call the police. Tell them he is an attacker." Chief Benson stepped back, covering his face with his hands, unwilling to look at his daughter's final, hysterical plea. Mama T watched from the side, her expression heavy with sorrow, knowing Clarissa was finally reaping the painful seeds she had sown. The few maids still present near the kitchen entryway watched with rapt, silent intensity, focusing on the powerful display of raw panic. Chica Anderson stood perfectly still, his fiancée hanging onto his clothes like a drowning person. The look in his eyes was not anger. It was a cold, profound disappointment that settled deep into his bones. He saw her now, not the elegant woman he loved, but a desperate animal cornered by her own unforgivable actions. He slowly and deliberately peeled her fingers from his shirt. Her grip was strong, driven by terror, but he was stronger, driven by the sudden, overwhelming need for truth and accountability. "Release me, Clarissa," he ordered, his voice low, steady, and utterly devoid of warmth. "I have stood here and listened to your father confess what you did. I have heard the pain you inflicted. You caused the death of a young woman, a maid, just like Amaka here. And now, the consequence has arrived." Clarissa shook her head wildly. "No, it was an accident. He is lying. Don't believe them, Chica. He is trying to ruin us." Chica looked over her head at the terrified security guard. "Samuel Okoro deserves to speak his truth," Chica stated, his voice ringing with finality. "He has carried this burden for years, while you have lived in luxury and lied to me. I need to know his intent. I need to know exactly what you did." He ignored Clarissa's choking gasp and pointed toward the door. "Guard, open the gate. Let him in." The security guard hesitated for only a second, shocked by the directness of the order, then quickly turned and ran back toward the front door to relay the command. A chilling, metallic groan filled the quiet air, As the heavy motorized iron gate, located hundreds of feet away, began to slide open, signaling the path was clear, Clarissa stepped back, stumbling slightly, her eyes wide, fixed on the long, empty stretch of the manicured driveway that led straight to the mansion's entrance. The seconds stretched into minutes, weighted by the terrifying silence. They did not have to wait long. A figure appeared quickly at the top of the driveway, walking with a brisk, determined stride that spoke not of haste, but of unwavering resolution. Samuel Okoro was not dressed in expensive suits. He wore simple, dark trousers and a clean, plain shirt, the clothing of a working man. His face was set in a hard, serious mask. His eyes, fixed straight ahead, carried the sorrow of a lifetime. When he stepped across the threshold and into the bright, expensive foyer of the Anderson mansion, a wave of coldness seemed to follow him. He stopped just inside the entrance, taking in the scene. The weeping Chief Benson, the sorrowful Mama Tai, the group of frightened staff, and Clarissa, standing center, trembling uncontrollably next to Chica Anderson. Samuel did not look at Chica first. His focus, sharp and terrible, locked onto Clarissa. He spoke, and his voice was rough, quiet, and absolutely controlled, far more frightening than if he had screamed. "Clarissa Benson," he said, his pronunciation of her name heavy, like a curse. "It has been 7 years since you took my sister from me. 7 years since you used your money and your power to hide the truth." Clarissa finally found her voice, barely a whisper. "I didn't mean it. It was an accident. Please, just go." Samuel took a deliberate step closer, ignoring her plea. "You called her a thief," Samuel continued, the memory flashing bright and raw in his eyes. "You slapped her face, pushed her to the ground, and shamed her in front of your staff for a missing 20 Naira note. 20 Naira. She ran because you terrified her, Clarissa. She fell on those stone steps, trying to get away from your rage. And you watched her bleed, and did nothing but cover it up." His voice broke slightly with suppressed grief. "She was 15 years old. She was my baby sister. She was everything I had." Chica felt a physical sickness in his stomach. The depth of the cruelty was far worse than the chief had described. He watched his fiancée shrink under the weight of Samuel's words. Clarissa started sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her throat. "I am so sorry. I didn't know. I never meant to hurt her." "Sorry doesn't bring back the dead," Samuel stated simply. "And sorry doesn't mean justice." Chica stepped slightly forward, placing himself between Clarissa and Samuel, not to protect her, but to establish order and define the terms of the confrontation. "Mr. Okoro," Chica said, his tone commanding respect, "I hear your pain, and I believe your story. But I need to know your true intent here today. You speak of justice. Are you here for vengeance, or are you here for accountability under the law?" Samuel met Chica's gaze directly, his eyes burning with conviction. "I came here because the police report was never finalized," Samuel said. "They took bribes and closed the case as an accidental fall. But I know the pathologist who wrote the original report. I have the papers. The case is still open, Mr. Anderson. Clarissa Benson caused the death of my sister, and she needs to answer for it." Samuel pointed a steady, accusing finger straight at Clarissa. "She is coming with me now," he declared. "She is going to the station to give a statement, and she is going to face the charges that were buried 7 years ago." Clarissa Benson let out a guttural sound. Not a scream, but a sound of final, total horror. The confrontation, the shame, the presence of the brother, and the definitive demand for police action. It was too much. Her eyes rolled back, her body went slack, and she crumpled immediately. Chica reacted purely on instinct, rushing forward to catch her before her head hit the white marble floor. the weight of his collapsing fiancée suddenly heavy in his arms. The weight of Clarissa's body was dead and unnatural in Chica's arms. He knelt carefully, lowering her shoulders until her head rested safely against his thigh, his mind still reeling from the devastating truth her father had just exposed. It was a purely mechanical action, protecting her from physical harm, even as she stood accused of unimaginable cruelty. As he shifted her unconscious form, a small, black object slid from the hidden pocket of her silk dress. It hit the polished marble floor with a quiet, sharp clink that sounded enormous in the stunned silence of the living room. It was not her main phone, but a slender, secretive device. Everyone's eyes, fixed on the crumpled woman, immediately snapped to the source of the sound. The screen of the phone, suddenly alive, bathed the white floor in a cold blue light. It vibrated once, catching a new message. Chica stared down. His heart, already heavy with betrayal, seemed to seize in his chest. He gently set Clarissa's head down and reached for the phone. The glass cooled beneath his fingers. He held it close to his eyes, blocking the light from the others, although they could clearly see the text displayed. The first message, clearly from an unknown number or perhaps one intentionally hidden, hit him like a physical blow, wiping away the last vestiges of confused pity he held for Clarissa. Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything? Remember, focus on the wedding. Once you marry him, everything becomes yours. Chica blinked once, trying to process the stark simplicity of the greed laid bare. This wasn't just about Clarissa's anger or her deep-seated entitlement. It was a planned, cold-blooded financial scheme. He felt sick. Before he could pull away, the screen refreshed, displaying a new notification, burning the words into his vision. This second message was far worse. An aggressive threat that defined the relationship not just as manipulative, but actively hostile. Plan B. If he tries to cancel the wedding, use the recording. That will keep him quiet. Chica stood up slowly, the phone still clenched in his hand, the blue light illuminating his face from below. The raw pain that had been evident when he heard about the dead maid was now replaced by a chilling, profound anger. His breathing became shallow and fast. He looked around the room, at Clarissa, lying like a broken doll, at Chief Benson, who stared at the floor, sweating openly, at Mama Tai, whose stern face now held deep sorrow, and at Samuel Okoro, who watched the scene with unwavering scrutiny. A recording? Chica's voice was low and strained, barely above a whisper, yet it cut through the tense quiet of the mansion. He held the phone up, not allowing anyone to read the specific message, but making the evidence clear. What recording? Chief Benson lifted his head, a look of abject terror on his face. Chica, please, my boy, you don't need to see that. It is nothing, just Clarissa's paranoia. Paranoia? Chica scoffed, the sound devoid of humor. This is Plan B. This is about what happens if I cancel the wedding. This confirms the cruelty was just a distraction for the real plan. To take my family's company, everything we have built. He took a step closer to the collapsed woman. Clarissa. Clarissa, wake up. Tell me what recording you made. What are you holding over me? What were you planning to use to force my silence? Clarissa moaned softly, still unresponsive, her lashes fluttering slightly, but her eyes remaining closed. Samuel Okoro, who had maintained a fixed, hard expression throughout the police demand, now spoke up, his voice sharp and penetrating. He didn't care about the billions involved, only about the character of the woman who killed his sister. Play it, Samuel demanded, taking a step toward Chica. Chica looked at him, surprised by the firmness of his command. If there is a recording, you must play it now, Samuel insisted. If we allow this woman any leverage over you, Mr. Anderson, She will escape justice again. If that recording exists, it proves her intent, her guilt, and her lack of human decency. For the sake of my sister, you must show us exactly who she is." Mama T nodded slowly, confirming Samuel's point. "The truth, Chica. No more secrets. Let everything she has hidden come out into the light, so there is no doubt left." Chica looked down at the phone. He knew the moment he unlocked whatever truth was on that device, his life would shatter completely. But the thought of marrying a woman who already had an escape plan and a weapon ready to destroy him was unbearable. He took a deep breath, the cold rage settling into a resolute determination. He slid his thumb across the phone screen, searching for the audio files, his hands steady despite the tremors running through his body. He knew he was looking for the final nail in the coffin of his engagement, but more importantly, he was seeking proof of the immense lie he had been living. He found a file labeled simply Plan B, Wedding Backup. He pressed the play button. The quiet, expensive air of the Anderson Mansion living room was instantly violated by a familiar voice, Clarissa's, sounding unnervingly calm, almost professional. It was the voice she used when discussing stock portfolios, stripped of the sugary sweetness she usually reserved for Chica. "Yes, the contract is ironclad," her recorded voice confirmed, the sound slightly metallic and distant, as if recorded in a large empty space. "I made sure Chica's lawyers only saw the standard prenuptial clauses. They never saw the Rider 17 addendum." A low male voice responded, unfamiliar, cold. "And you are certain that Rider 17 will pass scrutiny once the marriage is formalized?" "It will be too late," Clarissa's voice purred. "Once the papers are signed, the clock starts." Within 6 months, all assets acquired during the engagement period and the first year of marriage, including any new tech patents filed by Anderson Tech, transfer to my full management control if we separate, regardless of fault. Chica felt a physical coldness spread through his chest, replacing the earlier adrenaline. It was not just cheating. It was systematic robbery. He looked around the room, seeing the horrified eyes of Mama T, Amaka, and the chief. Even Samuel, the man seeking justice for his dead sister, looked stunned by the audacity of the financial plot. The unknown man on the recording pressed, "And if he suspects before the wedding? If he tries to cancel?" Clarissa chuckled, a dry, brittle sound that pierced the silence of the room. "That is why we prepared Plan B. I have the recording. If he tries to cancel, if he tries to make me look like the villain, the whole world finds out what really happened the night his mother died at St. Jude's." Chica staggered back a half step, the phone dropping slightly in his hand, though he still gripped it tightly. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room. His mother. That night. It was the one piece of pain he carried privately, the reason he avoided talking about her final hours. He had paid enormous sums to ensure the hospital records were sealed and the few staff who knew the truth were silenced. It was the most vulnerable, painful point in his life, and Clarissa had weaponized it. "She was right there," Clarissa's voice continued, careless and loud, echoing off the marble floors. "She was hysterical, asking for the medication, and Chica was nowhere to be found. He was in Abuja closing a deal, prioritizing money over his dying mother. That truth, broadcast publicly, will destroy his company, ruin his carefully constructed image as the humble billionaire, and wipe out the value of Anderson Tech overnight. He might be generous and kind, but the market only respects decisive action. Abandoning your mother in her final moments to sign a contract? That's lethal." The recording stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, crushing. It was no longer about a misplaced bracelet, or even the death of an unknown maid years ago. This was a conspiracy aimed at the total destruction of Chica Anderson, his company, his legacy, and his reputation built on integrity. Chica stood motionless, breathing slowly and shallowly. Tears, quiet and scalding, began to track paths down his cheeks. Not tears of rage, but tears of absolute, profound betrayal. He had offered his heart, his name, his trust, and she had responded with a blueprint for his annihilation. Mama T stepped forward quickly and gently took the phone from his numb hand, pressing the lock screen. She didn't need to say anything. Her expression was one of deep sympathy, mixed with a knowing sadness. She knew Clarissa's potential for darkness, but even she seemed shocked by the depth of the calculation. Chica finally spoke, his voice cracked and hollow. "The recording about my mother. She planned to use that against me?" Chief Benson, trembling and pale, sank onto a nearby velvet sofa, covering his face with his hands. "I tried, Chica. I tried to tell her this kind of greed would lead to disaster, but she stopped listening years ago. After the incident with the other maid, she just became colder, harder. I am so sorry, my son." Clarissa, who had been stirring faintly on the floor, began to wake up fully, hearing the last strained words of her father and realizing the recording had been played. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with panic. She scrambled backward on the expensive rug, dragging herself toward the wall, trying to deny the undeniable. "No, no, no, no!" Clarissa shrieked, her earlier composure completely gone. She was now a terrified animal trapped in a corner. "It was a joke. It was theoretical. Chica, darling, you know I love you. I was just being dramatic with a friend. We were just planning for worst-case scenarios in case the market crashed." Chica looked at her, and the absence of emotion in his eyes was more terrifying than any anger. The love was gone, replaced by a devastating clarity. "A joke?" Chica asked, the word coming out as a whisper. He wiped the tears from his face, steadying himself. He walked slowly toward her, stopping a safe distance away. "Clarissa, you planned to use the memory of my dying mother to blackmail me, to secure my entire company, and you call that a joke?" He shook his head slowly. "You didn't love me. You loved what I represented. You loved Anderson Tech, and you had a contingency plan to destroy me if I ever discovered the truth." He took a final, deep breath, pulling the remaining shreds of his dignity and self-respect together. The entire household staff, having quietly retreated earlier, now watched from the shadows of the doorway, holding their breath. "The wedding is off," Chica stated, his voice now firm and resonating, devoid of lingering affection. "The engagement is terminated, effective immediately. I cannot marry a woman who values money and control more than basic human honesty. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't lie." Clarissa's face crumpled into ugly despair. She lunged forward, trying to grab his ankle. "Chica, please! I can fix this. I will sign any paper. I will tear up the recording. Just don't do this, please. Don't humiliate me." He stepped back easily, avoiding her touch. "The humiliation is your own making, Clarissa. It began years ago with the maid you killed and the staff you abused every single day in this house. This conspiracy just confirms who you truly are." Then too, Samuel Okoro, who had stood silently observing the financial aspect of the betrayal, finally stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Clarissa. He had come here seeking justice for his sister's death, but he had found a criminal far more complex and dangerous than he imagined. "This changes nothing for me," Samuel said, his voice hard. "Whether she wanted money or not, she has a crime to answer for. The police investigation into my sister's death was stalled, but it was never closed. Chief Benson confirmed what happened. She needs to face accountability." Clarissa let out a guttural scream, looking desperately at her father, who only stared back with profound exhaustion and guilt. "No, Papa, don't let him take me. He will lie. He will ruin me." Chief Benson shook his head, his voice strained. "It is over, Clarissa. You have to face this. I covered for you once, and it nearly destroyed me. I won't do it again. Chica is right. We all deserve peace." Samuel turned to Chica, a look of respect in his eyes. "Mr. Anderson, I appreciate your honesty in dealing with this. I will take her now. I don't need revenge. I need justice, handled by the law." Chica nodded, a wave of weariness washing over him. "Go. Take her. Ensure the police are notified about the blackmail plot as well. I will ensure all evidence from that phone is handed over to the authorities." Clarissa fought desperately as Samuel took her arm. She twisted, kicked, and pleaded, her expensive clothes and flawless makeup contrasting starkly with her primal, terrified behavior. Mama T, showing unexpected strength, moved forward and helped steady Samuel, ensuring Clarissa couldn't lash out at Chica. "This is wrong. You are all making a mistake. I am Clarissa Benson. I am not going to jail for some foolish accident years ago," she screamed as Samuel firmly led her toward the front entrance. Chief Benson followed them out, pausing briefly at the door. He turned to Chica, bowing his head deeply. "Thank you, Chica, for everything, for ending this nightmare for both of us." He left, his shoulders slumped under the weight of years of secrets. The mansion finally fell into a profound, healing silence. The heavy double doors closed behind them, muffling Clarissa's distant, fading screams. The remaining staff members, who had witnessed the entire shocking collapse of the Anderson dynasty, slowly emerged from the shadows. They did not cheer or clap, but the relief was visible on every face. In the deep sighs, the lowered shoulders, the quiet gratitude that the reign of terror was finally over. The house felt lighter, cleansed of the suffocating fear Clarissa had imposed. Mama T put the phone carefully down on a side table. She walked over to Chica, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "It hurts now, Chica," she said gently, "but you are free. You chose truth over convenience. That is the only victory that truly matters." Chica just nodded, his gaze distant, processing the magnitude of the lie he had just escaped. He looked at the room, seeing the dust motes dancing in the afternoon light, filtering through the high windows. A grand, beautiful cage Clarissa had tried to trap him in. His eyes fell on Amaka Wosu, still standing near where the confrontation had begun, close to the spot where she had stopped the blow. She was quiet, dignified, and utterly centered. Chica walked toward her, slowly, deliberately. The other staff watched. This was the true ending of the ordeal. "Amaka," he said, his voice stronger now, but laced with genuine emotion. "Come here, please." Amaka stepped out into the light, her eyes meeting his directly, the same unwavering gaze she had used when she caught Clarissa's wrist. "When you came to this house, you were just looking for a job to help your mother," Chica said, folding his hands together. "You were quiet. You were humble. But you had a strength of principle that none of us had left." He paused, running a hand over his hair. "We, the staff who had been here longer, we had all bowed our heads for the money. We tolerated the abuse. We let her cruelty become normal. We enabled her." He looked straight at her. "You were here for 3 days, and on the 3rd day she raised her hand to strike you, and you stopped her. You stopped the slap. That single brave act," he continued, emphasizing each word slowly, "that refusal to be humiliated, was the thread that pulled everything apart. That moment made me look closer, forced me to question her, and led to everything being exposed." He realized the full weight of her impact. "Amaka, if you had bowed your head, if you had taken that slap like everyone else had, I would be marrying a criminal and a fraud next week. I would have lost everything. My reputation, my company, and maybe even my freedom, to her blackmail. He lowered his head slightly in a gesture of deep respect. You saved me, Amaka. Your simple, quiet bravery saved me from utter ruin. Thank you. Amaka shifted, perhaps unused to such profound gratitude from her employer. She spoke softly, her voice steady. Sir, I was just trying to stand for what is right. No person deserves to be hit or humiliated. My mother taught me that. Chica smiled faintly, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. She taught you well. You brought integrity back into this house just by existing. He looked around the spacious, relieved living room. The grand mansion, once tainted by deceit and fear, now felt ready for a new chapter. A chapter built on honesty and respect. The house needs a new beginning, Chica announced, addressing Amaka and the rest of the staff gathered nearby. We start anew. Everyone in this house deserves respect, and we will build a home where truth is honored. The sun setting outside cast long, warm shadows across the now peaceful marble floor, marking the end of the dark era and the promise of a quiet, honest future. Now we want to know what you thought. From 0 to 10, what score does this story deserve?